You hear that? That's the end of summer. That's the end of the tropical paradise. And it's almost back to school season. Or if you're like me, nothing's changing because you work full time. And because I work full time, I wasn't able to get a tropical getaway. I did go to Disney this summer, but that doesn't count. So I decided I'm going to talk about one of my favorite movies ever, and it's a tropical one, and it's a summer blockbuster. Hello, folks.
Is it lame?
My name is Chris, but you can call me Ganhu or Chris. It doesn't matter. This next sentence is what a 4-year-old says to you. Today, I will be talking to you about dinosaurs. I've always had this burning question about the Jurassic Park sequels, and that is, why do the sequels suck?
Welcome to Jurassic World.
He said it! I guess the more generous way to phrase that question is, why don't they feel like the first movie? It's not like Star Wars where it's like, here's all the good ones and here's all the bad ones. It's like, here is the greatest movie ever made. At least one of the greatest movies of all time. And then here are all the sequels that have a varying degree of not being anywhere near as good as the first one. Before we get started, just want to plug a few things. Click the link tree, join my Discord, like this video, subscribe for more, and give me your wallet. I have to get back to the airport. I don't have any money. I don't usually do this kind of thing. Just give me your fucking wallet right now. Don't cry. Don't make a scene. Just give me your wallet. Okay, so if you don't know this about me, this is my favorite movie of all time. That title used to go to American History X, but it's been a while since I've seen that movie, so I don't know if it's one of those movies about racism for white people kind of movies. And it's also just a really unpleasant movie in general, so I go for the dinosaur movie instead because that is easier and more fun to talk about. I know plenty of film kids are quick to call Steven Spielberg a hack, which is why I have to apologize for having 2 Steven Spielberg films on my wall right now. Sorry. I mean, that's not without merit though. You don't make The Post and Ready Player One in the same year if you're not just chasing a bag. But I don't think Jurassic Park would have had the impact that it had on me if anyone else were in the director's chair. And sorry to go back to the posters on the wall, but he makes a mean creature feature. Jaws is a great example.
Holy shit, did he just kill that fucking kid? This movie rules.
And I don't really know what it is about Spielberg movies that really stick out to me. I think part of it is that the movies are pretty innocuous looking. Like at a glance, they don't have like the prettiest cinematography in the world. Like sure, it's got some iconic shots, but if you just scrub through the movie, it doesn't have like a signature look. In fact, if you have a sharp eye, this movie has like a lot of technical mishaps. You can see a crew member rustling leaves in the Velociraptor enclosure. Another crew member taps this Velociraptor on the ass in the kitchen scene. This edit right here makes it into the final cut of the fucking movie. For 2 frames in this sequence, this dinosaur just completely disappears, just vanishes. I think what really seals the deal for a movie like Jurassic Park is the moments that aren't life and death. Moments where the characters interact with each other and just kinda hang out make the film feel so much more realistic than when the later installments try super hard to make their characters quip machines. The fact that this film features stellar performances by actors who really seem to engage with these characters they're playing makes it feel like a movie that isn't trying to be a blockbuster. It's not just a movie about dinosaurs, it's actually pretty philosophical. You have to have a high IQ to really appreciate and understand Jurassic Park. Okay, no, obviously that's bullshit. You can like this movie for the dinosaurs. I mean, that is an excellent reason to like this movie. Look at these fuckers. That's awesome. That's incredible. You've heard it a million times, but this movie is also a huge deal when it comes to the development of CGI. When people say it looks good today or that it looks even better than new movies, I feel like they're being a little generous, but the combination of CGI and puppetry was genius, and the effect is much more convincing than what we see in later movies. I believe that these people are in the room with a dinosaur. Not so much for these people. If there's any movie on this list that is not lame and the rest of them have to be, it's this one. Jurassic Park fucking rules. Really quick, I'm going to touch on the behind-the-scenes history of The Lost World. After the success of the first Jurassic Park movie, Steven Spielberg wanted to make a second one, so he reached back out to Michael Crichton, who wrote the first one. Crichton didn't really do sequels, like at all. Ian Malcolm, John Hammond, Henry Wu, they all died in the original Jurassic Park novel, and that's simply because there wasn't a sequel in the cards. But he eventually wrote the sequel, and that sequel was The Lost World. I've read the Jurassic Park novel, and it's really good. I love the book just like I love the movie, but I love both of them for very different reasons. I actually never finished the Lost World book, and I knew that the movie I'd eventually be comparing that to was a movie that I already didn't like, so I didn't have a lot of reason to finish the book. I really don't know why a sequel to the book was necessary to make a sequel to the movie. Like, Steven Spielberg could have just made a Jurassic Park 2 without a book to adapt. The Lost World is the Jurassic Park movie that I've seen the least, and it's also the most annoying. Do you remember when they said that a spin-off to Breaking Bad dedicated to Saul Goodman was a bad idea? I think this is what they had in mind when they thought that. Ian Malcolm works in Jurassic Park as a goofy side character that has some really profound moments, but I don't think that character resonates as well as a leading man in his own movie. That's another weird thing about this movie. Alan Grant wasn't really the protagonist of the first Jurassic Park movie. Like if anyone had to be sure, it's him. There were so many perspectives that we followed in the first Jurassic Park movie in a way that it didn't feel like anyone was like the hero or anyone was completely in the right or the wrong. And because there wasn't one main voice we were following or rooting for necessarily, I felt like it was a very dynamic and well-rounded story. Lost World is structurally different because we definitely have a guy that we're supposed to root for, and the antagonists are dinosaur poachers, so they suck. We just know that these guys suck. I think saddling a strong, central, patriarchal figure, or any main character for that matter, is where these films get a little lost. That's not to say that the movie doesn't do anything right, like the trailer falling off the cliff or the boat coming to shore. There's just a weird vibe about Lost World. It doesn't have that dreadful heel turn moment that Jurassic Park does. And we're gonna talk about that heel turn a little later. Jurassic Park 3 is the closest I feel like the franchise gets back to returning to its roots. Out of all the sequels, I feel like it's the best one. We get more of Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler, and they have this nice interaction at the beginning of the film, so that lulls me in. That makes me think, oh, they give a shit about the characters in this movie. That's nice. I feel like the character drama in these films is severely underrated. When you do it right, you actually give a shit about whether or not someone's gonna survive a dinosaur encounter. And I just feel like you don't get that kind of impact if your Jurassic Park movie isn't written with a tight screenplay. Although people tend to look down on Jurassic Park 3 for being a Jurassic Park sequel in principle, I can't help but feel like that's a little unfair. Jurassic Park was revolutionary and it still holds up today past the nostalgia factor. It's a smart, concise movie that may not always put the drama first, but it doesn't half-ass that aspect either. Jurassic Park 3 is an earnest attempt to pick up where the franchise left off in a way that doesn't feel hokey. I really like the idea of treating Isla Sorna like this corporate haunted house. Like, it's not just an island, it is like a full quarantine lockdown, do not set foot here area. And because of that smaller direction, I feel like the dynamic is a little different. It's smaller scale than the first or second film. So because of that, it feels more like a spin-off than it does a proper sequel. And although there is some charm in this movie, there are obvious trade-offs. This is the first Jurassic Park film not directed by Steven Spielberg. It's directed by Joe Johnston. The score credits do go to John Williams, but all the original material you hear in this movie is by Don Davis. Similarly, Michael Crichton does have a writing credit, but he didn't write a single word of the screenplay. What we see happen is a film that's trying to sell itself as part of a trilogy or a continuation of someone else's vision, while the talent has traded hands behind the scenes. Naturally, it's not going to feel exactly the same as the original, but then there are more obvious factors like the quality of the CGI fluctuates like crazy in this movie. I think the dinosaur fight near the beginning of the film looks spectacular, yet this stampede or this interaction with human and velociraptor, this leaves a lot to be desired. Overall, I do like the smaller scale adventure that we see in Jurassic Park 3, but I feel like it doesn't capture the same whimsy or excitement from the first film. It is, however, the closest you're gonna get to a good Jurassic Park sequel. Yeah, so Jurassic World is just a reboot of Jurassic Park. And I'll be honest, I really liked this movie when it first came out. Yeah, that's right. I had a really good time. It wasn't until I watched it again, like a week later, did I start to see the cracks in the armor. Keep in mind, I was like 16 when this movie came out, and like every movie was the best movie I ever saw. Which is why I find it shocking that this is one of the most forgettable blockbusters of the 2010s. I have a bunch of like little things that are reasons why I don't really love this movie. In Jurassic Park, the people who knew what they were doing, like left the movie or died right away. In Jurassic World, that doesn't happen because the guy who knows everything is the hero of the story. We still get like this badass, handsome action star played by Chris Pratt. He's gonna be quippy, he's gonna throw out one-liners, and he's gonna save the fucking day. After that reason, I started to make like a laundry list of reasons as to why I don't think Jurassic World is a great follow-up to Jurassic Park, until I realized, oh, they decided to make this movie an action movie. That's why I don't like it. And I mean, that should be obvious, right? That should be obvious from the name change. From Jurassic Park to Jurassic World, that implies that the scale is super different. How did I not realize that when I saw the movie like 3 times the year it came out? I don't know. I don't know. Still, there's like one huge issue that I'm thinking of that really bugs me about the premise of the movie. Why did they try again? When you look at John Hammond's willingness to open Jurassic Park, there's like a lot of willful ignorance that he employs to justify opening the park. Hey John, we think this man-made horror beyond your comprehension, and the fact that you're bastardizing it by commodifying it shows that you really don't understand what you have here. You should probably not do this. Nah, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm doing here. And then things go wrong until, oh my fucking god, things have gotten worse. And I'm realizing now that exploiting scientific breakthroughs without considering the consequences of those breakthroughs was a horrible idea. We definitely shouldn't do it, again. And listen, I wouldn't put it past a corporation to learn all the wrong lessons from a really bad idea that went horribly and try again. But like, several people died before the park opened. The government sanctioned the land that you leased from them because it is now infested with genetically modified mutant monsters. Why, in God's name, did you try again? And again, that might be like the metatextual question you should be asking while you watch Jurassic World, but it is goddamn annoying, and I can't believe that it was the intended effect. It's like a cartoonishly evil decision that ends predictably the same way it did before. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was, at one point, my least favorite movie of 2018. Looking back on it now, I don't think it's that bad. There are a lot of bold decisions they make to shake up the narrative. Bold is not an indicator of quality. My biggest annoyance with this movie is one that I feel like we've talked about before, but it doesn't get talked about enough. They introduce a whole ass new character who's apparently been here the whole time. I like to call this trope the "where the fuck were you" trope. They do it in Rise of Skywalker. They do it in Scream 3. They do it with The Eternals. Like, as a film premise, they do it with Eternals. The film decides that Ewan Roy was secretly business partners with John Hammond long before the events of Jurassic Park. This contrivance makes it much worse by the fact that he is supposed to be an important character that you have to give a shit about in this movie. He mentions being a partner of Hammond's, and that's supposed to serve as our connection to him. Now, if there's one thing in Fallen Kingdom that I really like, it's this sequence right here. It's near the end of the film. The Indoraptor is loose in the mansion, all the lights are out, and our heroes are trying to sneak to safety. The crosscuts between this sequence and the supporting characters trying to do a reset of the power grid to flush toxic gas out of an enclosed space with no idea at how badly that's gonna fuck these guys over reminded me so much of Sattler turning the fence back on in the first movie. The tension is palpable in the sequence, and I was really surprised rewatching this movie at how good it was. So hats off to Fallen Kingdom for getting one sequence right. So that leaves, and I haven't seen it yet, so when I do see it, here are my thoughts.
I'm gonna try to be quiet about this because my girlfriend is working right now, but we watched Jurassic World
Dominion
yesterday, and it actually wasn't as bad as I was anticipating. I really expected to hate it more than I did when I watched Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, but that wasn't the case. I did also watch Morbius the night before I watched this one, so that might also be skewing my perception on how bad the movie could have been. My official review of Jurassic World Dominion: better than Morbius.
All of these movies have a bad case of blockbuster syndrome. Everybody talks like a needle drop is about to happen. Everyone's got a one-liner. They're busting out John Williams' original score to get a sense of whimsy out of you, but none of them are very unique. I'm so sorry to say this, but for the Jurassic World movies in particular, the acting is just not that good. You guys know those TikToks where like they make fun of Marvel movies for the "he's right behind me" dialogue? That's like actually what happens in Jurassic World movies. And it drives me crazy that everybody makes fun of Marvel for that stuff when it's these movies. These movies are doing that. So,
Is the Jurassic Park franchise lame?
I'm not one of those guys who's gonna say that you can't ever touch the original material, that sequels, reboots, none of them are good. That's just blatantly false. There are good sequels, there are good reboots even. I just truly think that these movies lost what made the original so special. It's the promise that stuff is gonna go right. It is the setup of Jurassic Park where we have like the first half of the movie, look at how great this place is, and inevitably it all goes to shit. But with the second one, with the third one, with the Jurassic World movies, it doesn't take more than 30 minutes for shit to hit the fan. This idea had an expiration date, and we were bound to hit this wall once we penned the first sequel. It's just like that Ian Malcolm line. The movie producers are so caught up in whether or not they could that they didn't stop to ask whether or not they should. Boom, mic drop. Boom, 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 mic drop. Boom. So to recap, the first one, untouchable, goated even. The third one, not nearly as good, but I think it's a lot of fun and it gets too much hate. Everything else is a fucking wash. See you next time. Fiction stories. If you don't care for dry land, just the humidity. There's this place near Costa Rica where you'll have to embark, where they made several movies and called them Jurassic Park.